We live in a time where sensitivity is often confused with virtue, and taking offense has become almost a moral act. But what in fact happens within the mind of someone who is easily offended? Modern psychology, combined with ancient philosophy, points to something deeply unsettling. Being frequently offended is not a sign of moral strength or high principles. It is a clear expression of a fragile identity, emotionally outsourced, trapped in external validations. According to Epictetus, a stoic philosopher who was a slave before becoming a master of inner freedom, there is a type of slavery that is much more cruel than physical slavery, psychological slavery. This slavery is silent, subtle, and manifests every time a criticism, a sideways glance, or a differing opinion is capable of completely destabilizing your emotional state. When this happens, you have handed over control of your mind to someone else, and worse, voluntarily. Epictetus taught that it is not the events themselves that disturb men, but the judgments they make about them. And here is the crucial point. Offense is not something that happens to you. It is something you construct internally. Offense requires your cooperation. It is like an invisible contract you sign every time you interpret external words or actions as a personal attack. People who live constantly offended develop what we can call a defensive ego, a mental structure that sees the world as a battlefield where honor must be defended at all times. This mentality transforms every criticism into a threat, every disagreement into conflict, and every external comment into an existential judgment. The result? An exhausting life where every social interaction carries the potential to become an emotional war. Today's video dives deeply into this psychological phenomenon. We will understand why this reactive posture takes hold, what it reveals about our sense of identity, and how Stoic philosophy offers a powerful way out, an internal revolution that does not depend on changing others, but on mastering oneself. Because, contrary to what many think, emotional immunity is not coldness or apathy, it is freedom. Freedom not to react, freedom not to depend on others' approval, freedom to remain centered even when the world around you tries to throw you off balance. When you understand the true nature of offense, everything changes. Words lose their power, attacks become irrelevant, and your mental peace is no longer hostage to the unpredictable behavior of others. Epictetus, who lived the extreme condition of physical slavery, left us a disconcerting truth. There is more freedom in a man who masters his reactions than in a free citizen who is offended by everything. What is at stake here is not just your sensitivity, it is your inner sovereignty. The current society celebrates sensitivity as if it were an absolute virtue. People who call themselves highly sensitive are often seen as more aware, more ethical, more humane. But is that really the case? Or is this extreme sensitivity, in fact, an elegant disguise for a deep emotional fragility? Upon closer observation, we notice a pattern. Individuals who are easily offended are not just reacting to injustices or criticisms, they are trying to protect a fragile identity, an ego built on external validations and unrealistic expectations. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus observed this 2,000 years ago. For him, the one who is easily offended lives as a slave, not of shackles, but of other people's words. And this slavery is as suffocating as it is invisible. What we call sensitivity is often, in fact, a cognitive trap, a way of operating that completely outsources emotional control. When you allow someone else's words or actions to determine how you feel, you are telling the world, "My peace depends on your behavior." This stance places the individual in a constant state of alertness and vulnerability. They begin to live in a psychological minefield where any word, any glance, any tone can be interpreted as an attack. The mind then enters a state of chronic defensiveness. It's as if it is always expecting to be hurt, and for that reason, finds wounds everywhere. This behavior is not only emotionally exhausting, it is socially paralyzing. People who are frequently offended lose the ability to listen to others with neutrality, to grow from criticism, or to develop through healthy confrontation of ideas. And the most alarming part, this exacerbated sensitivity has been confused with moral strength, as if being outraged by everything were a sign of character. But constant indignation is a sign of instability, not virtue. The world is imperfect. People will disagree with you, will criticize you, will ignore you, and they will do so without apologizing. Believing that your dignity depends on how others treat you guarantees yourself a life of perpetual suffering. True freedom begins when you realize that offense is not something others provoke in you, but something you allow to happen within yourself. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop trying to control what is not under your control, and that is precisely the point where the most powerful teaching of Epictetus begins. In the next part, we will explore the conceptual key that breaks this invisible prison, the dichotomy of control. Get ready to confront a truth as simple as it is revolutionary, that everything that disturbs you can be dissolved by the way you choose to perceive it. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. For Epictetus, the human mind is liberated the moment it understands, in a visceral way, not just theoretically, that there are two fundamental categories in life: what is under our control and what is not. This distinction, known as the dichotomy of control, is not just an elegant philosophical idea. In practice, it is a weapon of mass destruction against offense, anxiety, resentment, and psychological suffering. What is under your control? Your judgments, your thoughts, your interpretations, your actions, your reactions. What is not? The words of others, their opinions, their attitudes, their feelings about you. Epictetus said, "If something disturbs you, it is not the event itself, but the judgment you have made about it." This statement contains an existential bomb. It means that no one, absolutely no one, can offend you without your active participation. You need to interpret the offense, accept it as true, and internalize it for it to have an effect. It's like an insult letter. If you don't open it, it's just paper. When you forget this fundamental distinction, you react to everything as if it were personal. A rude comment becomes a humiliation. A disagreement becomes a betrayal. A criticism becomes an attack on your worth. But all of this happens only because you confused what is yours with what belongs to others. You started treating others' opinions as if they were an extension of your identity. This is the perfect recipe for living in emotional captivity. And that's why Epictetus insisted so much. If something is outside your control, treat it as irrelevant. It doesn't mean being passive or indifferent, but rather unperturbed. This is the true stoic strength, to remain centered even when the world around you tries to destabilize you. You don't control what they say, but you control how you listen. You don't control whether they will respect you, but you control whether you will let yourself be hurt. This principle is not easy to apply. It requires mental training, constant vigilance over your own thoughts. But once internalized, it transforms your relationship with the world. You stop trying to change people and start changing your response to them. This liberates you. But there is something even deeper behind this automatic reaction to offense. Because even knowing that something is outside your control, you still feel the impulse to react. Why? What is behind this need to defend your image, your honor, your reputation? In the next part, we will dissect the 3 irrational beliefs that sustain this mental prison, and how they sabotage your peace without you realizing it. Even after understanding the dichotomy of control, many people continue to feel emotionally shaken by criticism, disrespect, or judgment. Why? Because deep down, there is a set of deeply rooted, irrational beliefs that shape the way we perceive these situations. They are invisible yet powerful ideas that fuel offense like fuel feeds a fire. Epictetus precisely identified 3 of these beliefs, and understanding each one is like removing a chain from the emotional prison you may not even realize you live in. The first belief is, other people's opinions determine my worth. This is perhaps one of the most destructive illusions a mind can carry. When you believe that what others think about you affects who you are, you become a hostage to others' perceptions. If someone praises you, you feel validated. If they criticize you, you feel diminished. But Epictetus reminds us, if someone gives you a negative opinion, you are not obliged to accept it. Someone's opinion of you is a reflection of that person's mind, not of your essence. Worth is not determined by applause or boos. It is internal, not democratic. And every time you take offense, it is because, in some way, you still believe that others have the power to define who you are. The second belief is, I need to correct every wrong perception they have about me. This belief generates a silent compulsion to explain yourself, to defend your honor, to clarify every misunderstanding. You become a slave to your image, a constant vigilante of how you are being seen. And that is exhausting. Epictetus was categorical. If someone thinks wrongly about you and you try to correct it, you are giving that person power over your mental peace. You have given not only your time, but your emotional center to someone who may not even have understood your story, and perhaps doesn't deserve that effort. The third belief is, people owe me respect. This idea may seem fair. After all, who doesn't want to be treated with dignity? But in the real world, expecting everyone to respect you is like expecting it to never rain. It will happen. People will ignore you, disrespect you, ridicule you. And when you react with shock or fury, you are telling the universe, I expected everything to be under my control. But it is not. Epictetus teaches, people act according to their character, not according to your expectations. You have no control over others' behavior, only over how you choose to react to it. These 3 beliefs, that opinion defines worth, that you must explain yourself, and that you deserve unconditional respect, are the invisible pillars that support the building of offense. Knock down these pillars, and the building collapses. But knowing this intellectually is not enough. It is necessary to transform this knowledge into living practice, into emotional muscle. And that is exactly what Epictetus proposed, a psychological training that gradually develops immunity to offense. In the next section, we will explore specific stoic practices that destroy at the root the need to take offense and build in its place a truly free mind. Epictetus was not just a thinker, he was a trainer of the mind. He did not believe that wisdom is obtained solely through reading or contemplation. For him, true emotional mastery is built through constant practice, like a warrior who trains daily before battle. In the face of offense, he invites us to develop what we will call here stoic immunity, a mental state in which offenses not only lose their impact, but transform into opportunities for inner strengthening. The first practice is what Epictetus called the daily dichotomy of control. Every morning you should remind yourself, today, with almost total certainty, someone will criticize me, disagree with me, ignore me, provoke me, and none of this is under my control. It is a brutal but necessary reminder. Anticipating offense neutralizes its impact. You will not be caught off guard, and more importantly, you will be training your brain to react with neutrality. Epictetus recommended, deliberately visualize an offensive situation that you fear. Imagine yourself being humiliated, criticized, or disrespected, and now visualize your stoic response. Silence, calm, clarity. Repeat this until that response feels natural. This is the art of emotionally preparing for the worst, and by doing so, you become untouchable. The second practice is the why do I care test. When offense arises, stop and ask, why does this person's opinion matter to me? Do they have real authority over my life? Do I respect their judgment? Does this criticism change anything objectively in my reality? In the vast majority of cases, the answer will be a resounding no. You are being offended by words from someone whose judgment you do not even respect. And yet, you allow that person to dictate your emotional state. This exercise reveals the absurdity of our reactive behavior, and this clarity in itself already weakens the impact of the offense. The third practice is one of the most challenging and liberating. So what? When someone offends you, criticizes you, or devalues you, do not defend yourself. Simply think, so what? Or better yet, what if they are right? This is the ultimate philosophical courage, to consider for a moment that your image, your reputation, your ideas may not be so untouchable after all. And by facing this fear head-on, you will realize something liberating. Nothing actually changes. Your real value does not diminish. The world does not end. This practice destroys the symbolic power of criticism. It ceases to be a threat and becomes a mirror. The fourth practice is the stoic reframe of offense. According to Epictetus, every offense is a disguised opportunity, a chance to practice virtue. Criticism gives you the chance to exercise humility, disrespect, patience, contempt, self-control. Reacting with indifference is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of self-control. You are not ignoring the offense because you are passive, but because you have decided to use it as training. This transforms the dynamic. The offender thinks they are hurting you, but in reality, they are strengthening you. The fifth practice is the development of what Epictetus called the internal locus of approval. Instead of seeking external validation, you begin to measure your life based on your own values. Write down your principles, establish internal criteria, and at the end of each day, evaluate yourself based on them, not based on what others have said about you. Gradually, your mind stops seeking approval like a dopamine addict. You become your own judge. These practices are not theoretical. They are concrete instruments of transformation. They are mental rehearsals that shape a new type of human being, someone who is not a hostage to words, who does not need others' approval, who reacts to attack with clarity. But even with all this, there remains a deep and dark dimension that needs to be faced, the most hidden root of offense. Because even before the criticism happens, you have already built within yourself a trap that ensures it will hurt you. And this trap has a name: fragile identity. In the next part, we will dive into this dangerous territory and expose the mechanisms of the defensive ego, the true origin of suffering in the face of offense. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. Behind most offensive reactions, no matter how sophisticated they may seem, there is always a common point: a fragile identity. An I constructed with borrowed pieces, validated by external approval, frightened by rejection, and dependent on the respect of others to feel real. When you're offended, it is not just because someone said something unpleasant. It is because it touched on an internal wound that you have spent your life trying to hide. And this wound, more than anything, is an ego construction. Epictetus understood this mechanism with brutal clarity. He observed that people who are frequently offended live with such an unstable sense of identity that any criticism, disagreement, or disrespect is interpreted as an existential threat. They do not distinguish an attacked idea from a personal value being crushed. They cannot see that a differing opinion is not a direct attack on their essence. For these people, everything becomes personal. Everything becomes war. And because of this, They live in a constant state of emotional readiness, always defensive, always tense, always interpreting the world as a minefield. This type of identity is what we can call a defensive ego, an ego that seeks not truth, but validation, that does not wish to learn, but to be confirmed, that does not listen to understand, but to protect itself. And when the world does not offer this validation, which inevitably happens, this ego reacts with resentment, anger, indignation. It is not interested in reality, but in maintaining a fragile self-image that must be defended at all costs. And this constant defense comes at a very high price. Because living defensively is living in a state of war. It is spending insane mental energy, managing others' opinions, controlling external perception, avoiding criticism, gaining respect, shielding oneself from any sign of devaluation. It is an endless and absolutely useless effort. Because the world will not stop contradicting you. People will continue to criticize you, misinterpret you, disrespect you. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. When you understand this, you realize that it is not your mission in the world to be understood by everyone, nor respected by everyone, nor defended by everyone. Your mission is different, to become internally unshakable, to the point of no longer needing this external protection. This is what Epictetus calls true freedom. It is not being in an environment where no one offends you. That is impossible. It is developing an inner fortress where offense simply does not reach you. But how is this fortress built? How is a solid enough identity created to not be shaken by criticism, to not crumble in the face of rejection, to not react automatically to every form of disrespect? This is where the most radical and liberating practice of Stoicism comes in, the deliberate premeditation of offense. In the next section, we will explore this advanced Stoic technique where you prepare for the worst insults before they happen and transform offense into training for inner power. Imagine that you are about to be criticized, publicly disrespected, or unfairly judged. Most people would expect this not to happen, pray that no one would dare to attack them, or prepare defensive responses to protect their image. The Stoic does exactly the opposite. He anticipates the offense. He rehearses it. He turns it into a ritual of internal strengthening. Epictetus called this the premeditation of offenses, a deliberate practice in which the individual mentally places themselves before their greatest social fears, being insulted, ignored, humiliated, disrespected. He visualizes every detail of the scene. He feels the emotion arise, anger, shame, frustration, and then rehearses the Stoic response: silence, firmness, disidentification. The goal is simple. When the real offense happens, and it will happen, you will have already mentally faced its impact. And at that moment, it will not find fertile ground to germinate. You are already greater than it. This kind of preparation is radical. It requires brutal honesty with oneself. It requires courage to look fear in the eye of not being respected. And most importantly, it requires the willingness to symbolically die, to let the fragile ego die, the need for approval, the illusion of control over others' perceptions. But by doing this, something extraordinary happens. You become unoffendable. And being unoffendable does not mean becoming apathetic or emotionally cold. It means that your dignity, your sense of worth, your inner peace are no longer for sale. People like this are dangerous because they cannot be manipulated by praise nor controlled by criticism. They are free. Their actions do not arise from the fear of displeasing or the desire to please. They arise from clarity. They walk through the world with an almost unbelievable serenity because they have discovered something that most never discover, that the true battlefield is not the external world, it is the internal theater of the mind, and that the most powerful victory is not over others, it is over oneself. When you stop being offended, you not only save mental energy, you stop living reactively. You stop trying to manipulate others' behavior to preserve your stability. You begin to live from the inside out. You become a psychological adult. And more than that, you become sovereign over the only thing that truly belongs to you, your consciousness. Epictetus was a slave who, even when physically chained, lived with more freedom than many of us do today. He understood a brutal truth. Those who need the world to treat them well to be at peace will never be at peace. But those who master their internal response no longer need to protect themselves from the world, because they have become the shield themselves. Now I want to know from you, when was the last time you felt offended? And if you had applied all of this in that moment, what would have changed? Share your experience in the comments. Let's build a space for real reflection, without victimhood, without self-deception, just truths. And if this message resonated with you in any way, subscribe now. There's much more to come. In fact, the next video is essential. Watch it right after. It is the natural continuation of this reasoning, and it may broaden your perspective even further. Are you ready to stop being reactive and become truly free? Then continue. The journey is just beginning.